Today, let's watch a horror drama movie, Eden Lake. The story takes place on a weekend. Steve and Jenny are a couple in love. They plan to go to a place called Eden Lake and camp there overnight. There are a lot of trees and grass. It's like a paradise. But when Steve and Jenny lie on the beach, enjoying the sunshine, the arrival of the 6 local teenagers completely breaks the leisure time of the two. These teenagers look like they are all 15 or 16 years old, 5 boys and 1 girl. They also bring a fierce dog with them. After the dog meets Steve and Jenny, it keeps going crazy to Jenny, and even sprays her with stinky saliva. Steve is polite to the 6 teenagers, telling them to keep their dog away, and not to harass his girlfriend again. Among them, the boy in the lead is named Brett. He is also the owner of the dog. Hearing Steve's kind words, Brett not only ignores him, but also says a bunch of dirty words to Steve. The other 5 also helps Brett to humiliate him. Steve does not want to argue with the teenagers and leaves quietly. Unexpectedly, his tolerance and compromise make Brett even pushing further. He not only stares at Jenny with a sulky look, but also gives her a very dirty gesture. Steve is very angry, but doesn't react under the comfort of his girlfriend. Fortunately, not long after, they leave the lake. After this unpleasant encounter, Steve and Jenny restarts enjoying their relaxing time. Then the two fall asleep in the tent they set up by the lake. Who knows, the next morning when they wakes up, they find a lot of bugs in the food they brought, and they couldn't eat it. A tire of their car was also maliciously punctured by someone. It was obviously done by the 6 teenagers yesterday. After changing to a spare tire, they drive to the nearby town for breakfast. Upon arrival, they see Brett and others riding bikes in front of them. Steve wants to catch up and scold these 6 teenagers, but Brett and others quickly ride away and enter a small alley and disappear. Steve has to let it go. After breakfast in the town, Steve takes Jenny back to Eden Lake. In order to prevent Brett and others from making trouble again, they deliberately drives the car to the other side of the lake. After setting up the tent, they swim into the lake. When returning to the shore, they find the backpack with the wallet and the car key missing. Steve and Jenny feel something is going off and hurries back to where they parked the car. As expected, the car was driven away. The two want to call the police, but find that there is no signal here. Without their mobile phones and car navigation, Steve and Jenny soon get lost. They don't know how long they've been wandering, then suddenly hears the sound of a car engine not far away. They look around, and their car is driving towards them. Fortunately, Steve reacts quickly, and he pulls Jenny to the ground. After standing up, they recognize that it was Brett and others driving their car. Brett, sitting in the driver's seat, mocking Steve and Jenny falling down in an embarrassing way. Then he drives away. Steve and Jenny, who are furious, have to walk and follow the direction of Brett and others. Until nightfall, they finally find those teenagers in the forest. The 6 people are playing around by the car. Steve goes straight ahead and requires Brett to return his wallet and the car key, but Brett refuses Steve's request. Steve couldn't bear it and rushes up to fight with Brett. At this time, a boy next to him takes out a dagger, then attacks Steve. Fortunately, Steve dodges it and takes over the dagger. Meanwhile, Brett's dog rushes to Steve. As a result, the dog is bumped into the dagger that Steve holds on his hand. The 3 people suddenly stop the fight when seeing the situation. Although the dog bumped into the knife himself, but Steve still hurries to apologize to Brett and ask him to return the car key. Maybe they could still save him by driving the dog to the hospital. Brett has no choice but to throw the car key to Steve. Before he could start the car, the dog has already bled to death. Now, Brett is full of anger, ordering his fellows to catch Steve and Jenny, shouting to kill them for his dog. Steve and Jenny hurry back into the car and drive away, but the 6 teenagers follow them tightly behind. Because they are not familiar with the road, the car has not driven far out and is stuck in a mud pit. The teenagers rush up and smash the windshield and headlights of the car with stones. At the critical moment, Steve finally gets out of the mud. But it's already late at night. There's only a faint moonlight in the woods. Steve, who is looking for the car lights, soon hit a big tree because he couldn't see the road. Although both of them are not injured, but the car could no longer start. What's worse, Steve is stuck in a tree branch that has passed through the car window. Meanwhile, they hear a scream from Brett and others. Steve decides to let his girlfriend Jenny escape first. Maybe she could find help, otherwise, they might both die here. Jenny has no time to think. She has to leave her boyfriend and run to the forest alone, but it's too dark to determine the direction in the forest. Where to find help? After thinking about it, Jenny decides to hide first and wait for dawn. The next morning, Jenny, who has been in the dense forest all night, hurries back to the car accident site to check upon Steve. but he disappears, and there is a bloodstain on the ground. Following the bloodstain, Jenny finally finds Steve. He is restrained to a tree by them. Brett seems to be in a state of madness. He is strangling the dog chain on Steve's neck, and almost suffocates Steve. At this time, another boy among them seems to be a little scared. He tries to persuade Brett to stop. As a result, he is threatened by Brett. In order to drag everyone with him into this, Brett orders everyone to stab Steve with the dagger, and let the only girl to record the whole thing. While witnessing all this, Jenny can only try not to cry out. Then, she pulls out her cell phone and wants to try her luck. Fortunately, the cell phone has a weak signal. Jenny quickly dials 911. Who knows that Brett would soon notice her action? It turns out that because Steve and Jenny are still in the love bubble, they even made their phones with synchronization functions. As long as they are within a certain distance, the two can check and control each other's phones through Bluetooth. When Jenny dials 911, Brett immediately notices that through Steve's phone. He not only hangs up Jenny's call right away, but also finds Jenny's whereabouts. Jenny has to run away in full speed. The teenagers leave Steve there and ride bike to chase Jenny. Just when Jenny is about to be caught, she hides in the dark, sticking out a big branch to stumble them. They trip over one after another. Jenny then seizes this opportunity to escape. At the same time, Steve on the other side also manages to get off the rope on him, and manages to escape the scene as well. Fortunately, he quickly runs into Jenny, who is running around. However, because of the excessive bleeding, his body is very weak, and he would faint any second. In this case, the two of them are afraid that it would be difficult for them both to escape. What's worse, Jenny lost her cell phone while she was running away. At present, there is no way to call the police anymore. Jenny has to hold on to Steve and hide in a small cabin by the lake. She wants to help her boyfriend to stop bleeding first. However, the injury is very serious. His abdomen starts to flow out black blood. It means that the blade has pierced through his intestine. Jenny is trying her best to help, but everything is in vain. Steve, who realizes that he is dying, takes out a small box from his pocket. He was going to propose to his girlfriend by the beautiful Eden Lake. Now, it seems that this ring can only be kept as a souvenir. Steve hands the ring to his girlfriend and tells her you must survive. Who knows, just as the two are about to part, those teenagers are approaching to the cabin. Jenny quickly pries the floor open and hide in the lake with Steve. Finding that there is no one in the cottage, they finally leave. After making sure they're gone, Jenny struggles to drag him ashore. Steve almost loses consciousness and could no longer move anymore. Steve keeps urging Jenny to leave alone. He also reminds her that he has noticed a sign not far away during the escape. Perhaps she could find the road by following the sign. Jenny decides to hide Steve first, then go to find help. She does see a sign pointing to the town after running not too far. This finally gives Jenny a glimpse of hope. She runs in the direction of the town. Unfortunately, before she could get far, Jenny steps on a piece of iron bar buried in the ground. Her feet are pierced badly. The intense pain makes Jenny uncontrollably scream. Unfortunately, the scream soon attracts the teenagers who are looking for them. Jenny could only rolls down a slope and hide temporarily. After Brett and others walks away, she holds back the pain and finally pulls the iron bar off her feet. Before Jenny could stand on her feet, a boy in white suddenly appears before her. Jenny is so scared because she thinks he is one of them. Fortunately, she finds that this boy in white is not one of the 6 villains. Jenny rushes to ask the boy if he has a cell phone. The boy says he doesn't bring it with him, but he could take Jenny to his mother for help, because his mother is nearby at the moment. Then she follows him without thinking too much. Unexpectedly, the boy brings her directly to Brett. It turns out that this boy has been bullied by Brett for a long time. After learning that Brett is hunting Jenny, he takes the initiative to set up Jenny in return for not be bullied anymore. Realizing the danger, Jenny is trying to escape, but is knocked out by one of them from behind. When she wakes up, she finds herself tied up with her boyfriend lying next to her. But Steve, who has lost too much blood, is already dead. Brett and others pile up dry woods around them, and sprinkle a lot of gasoline from the car oil tank. It seems that they want to burn Jenny alive and destroy any trace. After everything is set, the boy is forced by Brett to ignite the firewood. The flame quickly swallows Steve's corpse. Just when Jenny is completely in despair, her rope is suddenly burned loose by fire. Jenny, who regains her ability to move, immediately turns over the oil barrel around her. It just happens to form a firewall between them. Brett knows that Jenny wants to escape. He then pours the remaining oil on the head of the boy, and threatens Jenny to surrender. Otherwise, he would burn the boy to death. At this moment, Jenny cannot care about others anymore. She starts looking for a place to hide. Brett sees that Jenny does not care about the boy. He then actually lights the boy up. With a loud scream, the boy is burned to death. Jenny takes the opportunity to sneak into a trash can. After Brett and others walk away, Jenny climbs out of it. At this time, in addition to pain and fear, she is also filled with anger and revenge. She picks up a sharp piece of broken glass from the ground and prepares to fight with them. Just then, a blond boy suddenly turns back. Jenny takes the opportunity to stick the glass into his neck. He doesn't even have time to react and dies quietly. It's not until dark that Brett and others find his body. Another boy, seeing his friend died, wants to quit this hunting game. Unexpectedly, Brett kills him with his own hands. 4 people died in a blink of an eye. Except for Brett, the other teenagers are shivering. Jenny, on the other side, finally comes to the edge of the forest. She successfully stops a passing car. The driver in the car promises to take Jenny to the police station. But before that, he has to drive into the forest to find his brother, who has not returned for 2 days. Jenny has no choice but to get on the car because this guy could be her only savior. But who knows, the driver's brother is one of those teenagers. When the driver stops the car and gets off to look for his brother, Jenny takes the opportunity and climbs to the driver's seat, then starts the car and escape. At this time, a familiar figure appears in front of the car. It's the girl among them. Jenny speeds up without hesitation. The girl, who has no time to dodge, is killed under the wheels. Then Jenny finally arrives in the town. But before she has time to catch her breath, she almost collides with a car that passes by. To avoid accidents, Jenny makes a sudden turn and eventually hit into a backyard. There is a party going on in the house. Many residents in the town gathers. Jenny uses her last strength to get off the car and calls for help. Then she passes out. When she wakes up again, she finds herself lying on a soft sofa, surrounded by the residents in the town. When everyone sees Jenny waking up, they all ask her what happened. Then Jenny hears a dog barking as soon as she is about to speak. She looks around and finds the dog. The dog looks exactly the same as the one Steve killed. In addition, there are 2 dog pots in the house. What's most frightening to Jenny is that the photo on the wall in the house is Brett in his childhood. It turns out that she is in Brett's house now, and the parents of the teenagers are among the party. Jenny, who is panicked, wants to leave immediately, but is forced to stay by Brett's father. Under the circumstances, Jenny has to use the opportunity to go to the bathroom and try to find a way to escape. But the only window in the bathroom is reinforced with a guardrail, which is impossible to break. Desperate Jenny has to hold a knife in her hand to defend herself. At this time, the door of the bathroom is suddenly kicked open. Brett's father and Brett are standing outside the door, yelling to each other. Brett even accuses Jenny of killing his 3 friends. Jenny finds that she couldn't talk his father out of this, can only swing the knife to protect herself, but is soon controlled by Brett's father. Then Jenny, with despair, violently dragged back to the bathroom, and Jenny's screaming is gradually fading away. Meanwhile, Brett goes back to his room and turns on his phone silently, then deletes the murdering video. The story ends here. This movie is based on a real case. In the real case, 2 victims were all beaten to death by a stick. The female victim was also violently assaulted before she was killed. Okay, that's today's movie. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.